I wanted to tell you a story today, and it's really close to my heart, but I'm going to not tell you all of it because I'll fall apart. But early on, when we first got to Austin, our youngest, we had to put him in daycare. He was just a challenge, and we felt like Samantha needed some time to just kind of get her life back. This was our third child, so he was in daycare. So one day I went to have lunch with him. And it's a particularly difficult time in the journey. And I walk in, and it turns out that week he made me a mouse pad that had a picture of him. I think he was 2 or 3, and this, cool little poem. And I'm going to stop before I get emotional because it doesn't always work for the video feed. And it was just really a meaningful, I still have it to this day. But I go to this daycare, wasn't the best of daycares in Austin, but it was what we could afford. And I go have lunch with him, and I'm sitting in this little lunch hall, and I guess it was a dad day, there's all these dads there. And I'm sitting with him, and I fall apart at lunch. Like, I lose it. And I'm eating while wiping tears off my face. And my little boy is, he doesn't really notice it, and all these other dads are looking at me, and I felt like the biggest just idiot. But in that moment, there was a lot going on. There just really was. I was petrified of living the divorced life. I was petrified and just overcome with the emotion that Samantha was done with me. I thought maybe this is what life is going to look like. Maybe this is what I'm going to have to resort to, is just seeing my kids at lunch or dinner here and there, and custody rights and all that. I mean, everything had circled in on me. And in this moment, I was terrified. I'm sitting here and I was just so lost. I was, like the saying says, I was a ship at sea. And I had the least amount of control I had ever had in my life. No one cared. No one wanted to be my friend. I had lost everything, and I was bottoming out on a weekly basis, and this moment shook me. And I'll never forget, later on that night, one of my mentors said to me a few things. And he was very straightforward. He was very compassionate, and I thank God that I had him at this moment. And I want to share these things with you very quickly. The first thing he said is, son, you got to love God. Now, for those of you that are not Christians, listen, I respect that. I understand. That's fine. For you, it might be a little bit different, because there's a lot of you that don't subscribe to faith that watch these blogs, and I never want to alienate you, okay? For the Christian, you've got to love God through this. You've got to attach yourself to your faith. You've got to pursue Him. If you're not a Christian, well then, you've got to reconnect with love. You've got to reconnect with what it means to love, because love always acts in the best interest of another. Lust always acts in the best interest of ourselves. And if you found yourself in crisis because of infidelity, you've probably been giving yourself to lust far more than you've been giving yourself to love. And so you've got to reconnect with either your principle of faith, or you've got to reconnect with love itself, but you've got to do that. Number 2, you've got to love your spouse. And I had to love Samantha in the in-between. I had to love her as she would let me. There were some days that I could love her and care for her and hold her, and there were some days that I was loving her by dodging things. True. There were some days I loved her from the Holiday Inn Express. There were some days that I loved her in the same room watching TV. But it was a journey, and it was a ugly journey at some points in the process. Number 3 is I had to love my kids. And I will encourage you, if you're a betrayed or if you're an unfaithful, man, love those kids. Take this time right now to absolutely shower them with love. Reconnect with them. Do whatever you have to do to love them during this difficult process. Finally, number 4 is you have to love the process. And that might be a strong word. It might be more of embrace the process. It might be hard for you to love the hell that you're going through. But you're going to have to learn to love it, and you're going to have to embrace it, because if you don't embrace it, you're going to hate it. And then you're going to start hating people and hating your spouse and hating yourself, and you'll be finding yourself in this piece of crap daycare, eating this piece of crap lunch, crying with your son because you're so out of control and your world is spinning around you. Part of loving or embracing the process is loving your spouse in between maybe where you are now and where you want to be, or loving them in between disclosure and where you want to be one day. You're going to have to learn how to love them in the in-between. And next time, I'll talk to you a whole lot more about loving your spouse during the in-between season.